parents used to listen to classical music all the time when I was younger. And I always remember when my father came home from a difficult day at work, he used to sit in the living room reading the newspaper by the fire with his dog, whilst the rest of us, the 4 children, were keeping quiet. So I got to hear a lot of classical music then, but because I wasn't sitting listening with him, I didn't actually know who the composers were. So I recognise a lot of classical music, but I didn't have a classical education. But I think maybe if I hear a piece of music now, which really brings back very strong memories, they're again related to my father. He introduced me to jazz, which he liked very much. And unfortunately, when I was not that old, he was very sick. And so I bought him a cassette of Sidney Bechet's jazz music. And when I used to go and visit him, I listened to that. So that's why jazz music, and particularly Sidney Bechet, are very close to my heart. I really do love listening to music, but I don't do it often enough anymore. I don't seem to find time to do it. And also my husband and I have very different musical tastes, so I don't like listening to his music particularly, and he doesn't like listening to mine. So I usually try and listen in the evening after work when he's out. He's more, I would say, into heavier rock type music. I like some, but not so much. And I think my music is more gentle. I have tried to play. When I was very small, I started piano lessons, but I have no musical talent at all. But I also started to learn the violin, but when I was about 10, 11 years old, I stopped for 2 reasons, well, 3 reasons. The first reason, I have no musical talent. The second reason was that I had a choice between having violin lessons on a Saturday morning or playing tennis for the school tennis team, and I preferred tennis and was better at it. And the third and probably most important reason was that my brother and 2 sisters lobbied my parents to stop my lessons because they didn't like the sound of me practicing because I was so bad. I would say my musical taste is very, very eclectic, so I have various different categories. As I said, classical, jazz, I would say not very contemporary music now, but I would say not necessarily classical pop, because I'm not a particular fan of classical pop. But in the UK there's a category called indie, of independent music from independent, so I would say indie. And probably a few bits of rock, and maybe the odd bit of pop, and probably the only category that I don't really have is country and western. Rage my way. Yes, I'm old enough to have had various different collections. Possibly my prized collection that I still have is my records. Many of which are actually from my father. I inherited his classical music collection and some of his jazz records. And I also got a lot of records when I was a young woman. And I bought a lot of Beatles records when I was studying in Russia, in the Soviet Union. Russia, Beatles? Yes, towards the end of the 1980s, a lot of Western music started to become available in the Soviet Union, and I was really pleased to be able to buy a lot of Beatles records in Russia. And then the next generation, I had a lot of cassettes, most of which I don't have anymore because I have no way of playing them. Then I had compact discs, which I can still play now if I can find my equipment. But now I do what most people do, and I download music onto an MP3 player. So I think you can see how much technology has changed through the different musical collections that I have.